Hey, morning friends. We are back again for another video. Today I'm going to talk about my kind of big picture strategy. I am running a marathon, not a sprint when it comes to buying collectibles, investing in collectibles. Stay tuned. Hello to all my sports card collector, investor, all of my collectibles friends out there in the world. I've been thinking hard on a lot of different subjects here, and I like to just kind of share what's on my mind, get feedback from the group. That's kind of what I do, and I really enjoy that. That's my shtick, if you will. Shtick? Shtick. I think that's how you say it. Anyway, if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. If you like what you hear, a like, a tappity tap on the notification bell so you are notified when new videos come out. I very much appreciate it. And this community that I've got here is awesome. I love interacting with you guys. So thank you very much for being here. All right, I want to talk about kind of the long-term approach that I am taking to some, not all, collectibles, but I want to talk about some big picture things because I think that it's really important to try to distinguish between some of these things. And I titled this up, I'm running a marathon, not a sprint, because I think that there are a lot of sprinters out there, which there is nothing wrong with short-term flips and short-term, game plans for certain players, certain collectibles. It makes a lot of sense. And also, I think that it makes sense too when you're looking to kind of buy to sell to flip to then buy into larger cards or larger collectibles. And not everybody's got $1 million bankroll to just go out and be like, oh, okay, we're just going to go out and buy this stuff. And that's how I've, tried to do it as well, where yes, I'm using new money, putting new money into that market, but I've also tried to harvest some of that stuff, to where I, take some gains here and there and use that to buy more stuff that I like. And so I think that that's really important is that this is not a bash on short-term flips because I think that all of it is fun and all of it is part of the game, if you will. What I mean though is there's a lot of reactionary stuff, and this is not just in collectible sports cards, it's in traditional investments too, whether we're talking about stocks, bonds, real estate. You see a lot of reactionary things. Oops, something happened in the market here, so there's big reactions, big sell-off, big, fire sale or whatever. And, a lot of times the kind of the big winners when it comes to investing over time are the ones that just kind of stayed. They picked their spots. They said, okay, this is what I feel is good stuff. I'm sticking with it. It's kind of like Warren Buffett talking about Coca-Cola stock, for example. He's got, you pick good companies that you believe in. For him, it was also insurance companies, and you kind of ride that wave and see where it goes. But there's a lot of kind of bumps and bruises along the way. And I think the big thing for me is just trying to win a little bit more than I lose. We've talked on the channel as well that losses are a part of this thing. It's not always going to be gains and to the moon and all that stuff. It's supposed to do that, and that is okay. And that's why, we're speculating on a lot of these types of collectibles. There's not a proven track record for a lot of things. But I also think, though, too, is I've heard a lot of the comparisons to, tulips and Beanie Babies. Yes, of course, you've got bubbles that exist in certain collectibles markets, whether it be tulips back in the 1600s or whenever that took place, where people were buying tulips at, exorbitant prices because of the colors and everything else and blah, blah, blah. And then Beanie Babies, of course, were just little kind of stuffed animals, essentially, that had scarcity attached to them. But these are different animals compared to some of the more established markets, whether it be vintage sports cards and even just sports cards in general. You're talking about 100+ year history, and then comic books. And I understand that third-party grading is fairly new if we're talking about coins, comic books, video games recently, sports cards. It's all over the last, couple of decades. And I get that, but there's enough collectability and enough, nostalgia. There's other elements to, sports cards, for example, that don't exist with Beanie Babies. Beanie Babies was kind of of course, it's a flash in the pan type thing. It's a pop culture thing, Pogs, Beanie Babies, where things are collectible for a period of time and then people move on from them. But there's not, Beanie Babies aren't, playing in Game 7. There's not well, at least I don't remember there being a Michael Jordan Beanie Baby, where they, have them dunking over another Beanie Baby or whatever. It's apples and oranges. But I think that that's a good lesson that we have to be careful. Not all collectibles are created the same, to where there might be some excitement around a certain collectible. Cabbage Patch Babies. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out. Where there's a huge rush for a certain collectible, and then maybe it's not going to be collectible down the road. And that's why on my channel, a lot of times we talk about what is the IP of something? What is the brand? What is the brand? Brand is kind of everything nowadays, whether it be, Disney or, some of the big, these 80s kind of pop culture things that have carried on. Some people don't believe that that'll be something that carries on over time, and that's okay. And like I've said, from the 80s, maybe it's not Thundercats, that stays relevant 30 years from now, or maybe, I don't know, G.I. Joe is a pretty big IP, but maybe nobody cares about G.I. Joe in 30 years, and that was big in the 80s. So there's certain, we have to pick our spots, obviously, and everyone has to make their own decision on that. But I think that, the idea that everything it's a very reactionary, market in general, but especially in alternative investments. I think just because with some of it, you don't have a long track record. And then also it's easy to pick apart. They're smaller markets. When you're talking about market cap on collectibles versus, the stock market or something, the real estate market, these aren't comparable, so I think it's more about collectability with something as well. Will something maintain collectability over time? Do you think that character or that player will maintain over a period of time? And so that's where, recently for me, I've been looking at, legends. I know I've talked about it on my channel, but I'm looking at kind of on-card autos for Hall of Fame players, for the legends, if you will. But I think that there's also something to be said for prospecting on some of the newer players as well. Of course, you have to know you're prospecting. You don't know how their careers are going to end up, but there's also a lot of times lower price points for some of those players. You can kind of get in early on a player, but just know that that's kind of a function. It's kind of a sports betting, type thing where you're just kind of, you think things could go well. And honestly, you could have a player that's on an amazing track that just all of a sudden injuries plague their career, and then they kind of fizzle out from there. There's been a lot of high profile players that have come along over the years that have started out of the gate with a bang and then just haven't, because of injuries, nothing of their own fault. It's just that injuries have plagued their career and they were never able to really kind of get over the hump. RG3 is an example at quarterback, where came out and had an absolutely electric rookie year. The Redskins are in the playoffs, and then he had injuries. You could say he's a running quarterback. Well, every quarterback in the NFL, minus, a handful, are now kind of running quarterbacks. So all of these guys are at risk, and football is football. The running backs, we talk about the running backs going down, with injury. And then you have like Andrew Luck, who is, probably could have had a Hall of Fame career and just decided to hang it up at 30 years old or late 20s, after just deciding to do that, just out of the blue, deciding to retire. There's always risks, associated with this stuff. So, that's where I think a lot of people preach vintage, because you never know with these modern players where that could go. But at the same time, there might be opportunities to get in early. So again, it's not a knock on, these kind of short-term plays or just buying the younger players to hold long-term and kind of hoping it works out. That's fine if that's, how you're speculating on the market. But I think it's important to kind of just recognize that with a lot of things in life, if you pick something and you're like, you know what, I believe in this and I'm going to just write it out, then it makes sense to just kind of pick it and write it out. And of course, if you don't need that extra, if that's disposable income, you don't necessarily need, for bills and everything else, you can just kind of put that aside and forget about it for a while. Then those things can work out really well for you. At the same time, I think that it's a good idea to be adaptable. For me, it's like I could, on one hand think, okay, this is a great, player. This is a great team. This is a great set, whatever, and then shift gears at any time. Be adaptable. I also think that being adaptable is not a bad thing either. that whole, the buy what you like, buy the card, not the grade and all that. A lot of it for me is, am I okay being stuck with this? Is this something that I would hold for a long period of time? And if it does click that box, if I feel it's got collectability to it, am I the only one that thinks this is cool, or do I think other people will think this is cool down the road too? Those are all kind of the thoughts that go through my head, when I'm buying, just to see, because like I said in the channel, I kind of want those incremental gains. I understand the volatility can be fun, but of course with the volatility you get the highs and the lows, you get the crashes, and then with all of that you get the reactions. Cards are surging, cards are crashing, cards are surging, cards are crashing. Whereas it would actually be probably nice, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like just kind of a little bit of a steady growth. Yeah, you maybe have some dips here and there, and frankly for a lot of the stuff I think it's awesome. I'll buy the dips and do kind of the dollar cost average thing, where I'm looking to kind of buy on the low end for some of this stuff, because for particular cards, memorabilia type stuff, I believe in it over the long haul, and it'll be fun. This is why I'm kind of documenting this stuff, to see like down the line, what's this going to look like? Is it all going to go to zero, or whatever? I think that's kind of the fun part of it. Let me know what you guys are doing. Are you running a marathon? Are you sprinting? Or is it a combination of the two? Because I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Running a marathon, but maybe doing a few sprints here and there, some short-term plays. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that can be a lot of fun as well. All right, guys, talk to me about your plans. Have an amazing week. Have an amazing day. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I will talk to you again next time.